All right, we are taking a break from our normal drawing and modification commands, and we are going to talk about views and how to manipulate views, meaning how do we duplicate or delete views, and how do we print. So we'll talk about views, we'll talk about printing today, some of that good stuff. I'll just probably start with my file that I've been working on so far. Did anybody go to the lecture last week? I know Bon did. I had a meeting that day and I told everybody who wanted to go, maybe I told you, I said, don't be late because if you go late, it's going to be full, right? And then my meeting, it was packed. My meeting ran over a half hour and I was late, of course, and it was packed and I couldn't get a seat, so. All right, let me open my, go to my desktop here, this PC. Okay. All right, so here is our little residence, right? We have, so far, we have our walls generated, we have upper level walls, we have lower level walls, we have doors, we have windows, right? If we look in our elevation views, we have,
We're discussing answers to the quiz.
Look who it is, look who it is. Must be the cold weather. Everybody doesn't want to get out of bed maybe when it's cold outside. And we have levels, right? When we pop into 3D, we can see everything. So we've got a lot of information so far, right? We know how to draw using our drawing tools. We know how to modify things, right? We can offset, we can rotate, we can move, we can copy. So, you know, just a few weeks in, about a month in, and we've got a lot of the basic drawing and modification tools available to us, okay? We can create wall types, we can create door and window types, you know, pretty important. So I think right now is a good stopping point to kind of break from the typical drawing commands and say, great, so we know how to draw a few things. How can we print them? How can we put them on a sheet and print them? How can we modify our views, duplicate, and do a few other things with our views of our model, okay? And I just want to remind you, when I say views, right, because we're working in a BIM model, we essentially, to create our construction documents, we create an entire model, right? And then the floor plan, for example, is a view of that model, right? The elevation is a view of that model, okay? So today we'll talk about manipulating views and we'll talk about how we're going to print things, essentially. First thing, I think actually probably the best route will be, we'll talk about views first, right? And then once we have talked about views and how we can manipulate views, we'll talk about how to put them on sheets and print them, okay? So again, a view is a view of our 3D model, right? So when I look at a floor plan, I am looking at a view of my model in floor plan view. And what that means is that I am looking at my floor plan view of my first floor plan, or my first level, at a 3-foot horizontal, 3 to 4 foot cut of the building horizontally, right? So it's as if I'd taken this model, let me go into 3D, so hopefully some of you I know understand this, but a floor plan would be essentially if I took my entire model like this and I dropped the view down to 3 or 4 feet above the finished floor, and that is my cut line, and this is all of the information I see in that cut line, okay? So that is what a floor plan view is, okay? All right. So let's talk about our views over here, right? There are different ways that we can create different views, okay? And I'm not going to go into kind of this longhand version of doing it, but I'm just going to show you there are ways of creating new views. I can come over here to View, okay? And I can go to Plan Views, and here I could, for example, create a new floor plan. Click on Floor Plan, it says, hey, where do you want to create it? And I can create a new floor plan, okay? Another way that I can create a new floor plan view is by adding another level, right? So if I go into an elevation or a sectional view, I can go up to architecture, I can click on level, click, and when I draw this new level, it creates a new floor plan with it. Okay, great. So there are a couple of ways of creating brand new levels, right? Which from maybe what you're gathering in Revit is kind of a novel thing, right? We don't generally just create brand new things in Revit, right? Usually we take an object that's existing, we duplicate it, rename it, and redefine it, right? Well, we can also do that with plan views, okay, and sectional views and elevation views. Instead of, you know, coming up to level or going over to view and to the plan views, I can take an existing view and I can copy it, right? I can duplicate it, rename it, and then alter it to fit whatever I'm trying to do, okay? So I have my main level. Click, click, great, okay? So on my main level, maybe I come in here and again, this is stuff you don't quite know yet, but there are certain things that you do on certain floor plans, right? So for example, maybe on the main level floor plan, I'm going to add dimensions, okay? So I come in here, click, 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 right? And I add dimensions. Great. And that's on just my main level floor plan, right? But maybe I want to use this exact same floor plan and I want to show the floor finishes, right? But I don't want to show the floor finishes on the dimension plan because maybe it gets a little too confusing, right? Or maybe I need a plan that just shows furniture. And I don't want to show the furniture on the finished floor plan or on the regular floor plan because it gets confusing, okay? I guess maybe the point I'm getting at is that this basic template of architecture, these exterior walls and these interior walls and the door placement, right? Those are things in the model that don't change. But the things that you represent, that these items kind of are the boundary for, does change, okay? So in some views, maybe I just want to show the furniture, right? I want to have a finished floor plan. I want to have a furniture plan. I want to have a dimension plan. And I want to use the same architectural template for all of those, but I don't want them all to be contained on the same view of the plan, all right? So what we're going to do in that case is we are going to make duplicate views of our main level. We're going to rename them, and then visually we're going to turn information on and off in those views, okay? So if I come over here to floor plans, I can click on a level, I can right click, I can choose to duplicate a view. So I have three different ways of duplicating. Duplicate, duplicate with detailing, and duplicate as a dependent, okay? Duplicate just makes a copy of the architecture, a view of the architecture, right? It doesn't create a second model. It just takes that view of the model and makes a copy, okay? Duplicate with detailing takes this view that I have on my screen of the architecture, and it copies not only the view of the architecture, but all of the annotation, right? Annotation meaning door tags, window tags, dimensions, etc. Okay, so things that are typically view specific, it also will copy, okay? And then duplicate as dependent means that this architecture, the view of this architecture is duplicated, right? All of the annotation is duplicated, but this copy that I'm creating is essentially, it's a child of a parent view, right? Meaning if I change the parent view, then the child view is also updated, okay? So the duplicate as dependent establishes a relationship between the original view and the view that I duplicate, okay? By and far, the most common type of duplicate that I use is duplicate with detailing, okay? And I like that because generally I will get my floor plan to a level of detail that I like, and then, you know, it includes most of the things I need, and then I will break off and say, I'm going to add floor finishes, I'm going to add, you know, more dimensions, I'm going to add, you know, furniture, equipment, whatever. So I usually will use duplicate with detailing because I bring them to a certain detail level and then I add specific information after that. So I click on duplicate with detailing, and you see that a main level copy is created. So if I go to main level, click, click, there's my view. Main level copy, click, click, there's my view, okay? So they're identical at this point. Now on main level copy 1, I can come in, I can delete these things, delete, 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 and you don't know how to yet, but I could add text, and I could say something like, this is the copy, right? And now when I switch between the views, main level, I don't see that object, the text, right? But I do see it here, okay? Now one thing to note is that, you know, these levels are copies of one another. And things that, at this point, they're separate copies of one another, right? So things that are view specific, meaning annotation or detail lines or filled regions or, you know, different things like that are view specific won't translate between the two. So if I create it without a parent view association, they remain disconnected. So that's why this text is now not in this view, right? I can have the freedom now to visually manipulate these two things, okay? But I don't want to confuse you and say, if I change a wall, how easy was that, right? The architecture changes still translate. So we're still viewing the same model, but the things within those views are going to be kind of different, even though that architectural template remains the same, right? And that makes sense. Because if you change a wall or you change a window location, you want to be able to know, you know, and work around that in the different views that you're working in, okay? So architectural changes are represented in every view, but view-specific things like annotation, hatches, detail lines, text, things like that are not, okay? But that's not to say that I can't visually manipulate them and view different things in the model separately in each view, right? So for example, I can come into main level, and if I want to turn this wall off so I don't see it, right click, hide in view element. I can turn that wall off in this view, whereas in this view it's visible, right? Again, visual settings don't translate between views, okay? So I can essentially manipulate them independent of one another visually, but the main architecture stays the same, okay? So this is going to be really helpful, and we're not going to get into all the changes today, but this will be very helpful when you want to have, you know, one floor plan with dimensions and another without them. And you want to have the floor finishes shown on one floor plan but not another. Or you want to show the furniture on this plan but not another, right? You'll be able to manipulate that visually, okay? Okay, we can copy any view. So I can come in here and I can make copies of the basement if I wanted, right? The main level, I can make a copy of a copy, right? I can make a copy of the site plan. Any of these levels I can make a copy of, okay? Another really useful thing that is a view specific item is cropping an area. So if I, for example, wanted to create an enlarged plan of the stairs, okay, I would duplicate this view, and I could duplicate it through the project browser, or there's another way using a call out, which we'll talk about in a second. But I could duplicate it through here, and then using my crop regions, let me turn that on, crop region, I can crop out different areas of the plan, right? So visually, again, I am manipulating this. I'm not really changing anything, I'm just visually manipulating it, right? So now in this view, I'm just seeing the stairway, right? But in this view, I'm seeing the entire plan, okay? I've said it about 100 times, but visual changes can be made, right? And they're not represented in every view. Yep.
Is that for like section views?
Yeah, you can do the same thing with section views. Is that, yeah, yep. So if I create a section and then I want to just not represent the whole wall section, but a you know, area of it, I can do that as well. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna bring this back to where it needs to be. Right, there we go. Turn my crop region off. There we go. I want to turn my wall back on because I've hidden it and I don't like that. So to remind you, I go back down to my light bulb, and all the pink items are hidden, right? I go back in here, I click on my wall, unhide element, close out of this view, and there's my wall again. Okay. So the same thing, let's look at one of our elevations. If I go to my east elevation, right, and this would translate to sections or details or whatever, right, I could right click, duplicate view, and now I have two different views. Okay, so I'm not going to just leave these as east copy number 1, right? I could right click, rename, and we could call this something like east elevation existing view, right? So you'll have new views, you'll have existing views, there will be a bunch of different, you know, things that you'll figure out as you start working in Revit a little bit more. Maybe existing isn't the best name, so I want to rename it again. I can rename it again if I want, east, and maybe we call this something like materials study. Okay, main level floor plan, and the copy, maybe the copy is enlarged stair plan. Right, so I double click on enlarged stair plan, and I would show my crop region and bring this in just to kind of bound the stairway there. Okay, turn my region off, and then I could just annotate the stair. Okay, so we can duplicate views, we can rename them. You can make as many of these as you want, right? And it's very helpful for being able to use the same architectural template but express different types of information on them. Okay. All right, let me just make sure I didn't skip over anything here. Ooh, what's that? Okay. So talking about views and being able to capture sort of different elements within these views, right? One important topic that has to do with view manipulation is the call out, right? So if I go to my main level floor plan, right? And I see I have a main level floor plan here, and I also have an enlarged stair plan, right? That's great. We need both of those drawings to permit a house project, right? But what's also useful is to be able to see visually with some annotation where that enlarged stair plan occurs, right? So some type of outline, and then maybe a note saying, hey, here's my enlarged stair plan. If you go to this certain sheet, you'll be able to view it, right? Now, the way that I went about manipulating these views of this main level floor plan, right, completely valid way of doing this, okay? Another way of going about creating a view and a specific view with annotation is called the call out, okay? If I come up here to my view tab, you'll notice in the center here I have a call out option. If I drop down my call out, we have a rectangular and a sketch. We're just going to use rectangular for right now, okay? If I click on rectangle, click, my cursor acts like it wants to draw something. Let me just show you how this works and then we'll talk about it. If I wanted to create an enlarged entry floor plan, I would use my call out, I would drag a boundary around the area of the plan I want to call out, click, okay? And by doing that, over here you'll notice main level call out number 1 was generated, okay? So essentially what I've done by using the call out tool is I have made a copy of the floor plan, and in one movement I've copied the floor plan and I have cropped it into the area that I want to work on, right? And what's nice about that is it generates a view, it outlines the view, the call out, right, on the main floor plan, and then when I put this on a sheet it will route me to where that information is noted on the sheet, right? So if I double click on this, click, I am brought to that view, okay? And that view is called main level call out. I could right click, rename my view, and I could call this main level enlarged entry plan, okay? Enlarged plans are areas in the plan that need to be at a slightly larger scale to show the city or to be better built, I guess is better view it to build it. Most of the time I would say that a call out is for the city and they want to see areas of life safety or accessibility. So places like the stairway and the restroom, right, are generally going to be enlarged plans to show that your clearances have been met and that your, you know, all of your code requirements are being met, okay? Callouts are also used to detail items. So, you know, for example, this door jamb, right? I could create a call out here and then add detail information to show exactly how you intend on it being, you know, being built, all right? I'm going to close out of this view and go back to my main level floor plan. So this is a call out. I can click on this call out, and it's essentially like a mini crop region boundary, right? So I can drag it in a little bit. I can use the script to drag it in a little bit, drag it in a little bit, right? Drag it in a little bit, and it bounds it even tighter right there. What, this little guy? Yep. So if I click on the outline of it, I get 2 grips, right? I can drag that around. Isn't that nice? And I can grab this little guy and give it a diagonal. It's a little crooked there. There we go. Right? There we go. Now, the one thing about this, the difference between this and AutoCAD, right? In AutoCAD, when you have a standard, this length is always the same and this length is always the same, and people get kind of crazy about that. We're a lot more loose with Revit because there's not really a, I think, specific way of being able to tell what distance all these things are, right? Anyway, there is our call out bubble, okay? All right, so we have our main views that we can duplicate, right? We can duplicate floor plans, ceiling plans, 3D views, elevations, sections, details. We can duplicate any view. We can give them a new name, and we can manipulate visual items, visual instances in those duplicate views. So anything non-architecture related can be manipulated separately in each of the views, okay? Callouts are generally a larger scale view of a specific area in a floor plan, right? An enlarged floor plan or a detail, right? May not make a whole lot of sense to you just yet, but it will eventually. Okay, so let me just, okay. One other thing about views I want to talk about is our view region, or sorry, our view range, okay? So we know how to duplicate views, right? We know how to create call-out views, which are duplicate views at a different scale. I want to talk a little bit about how another visual setting in our views, which is called the view range, right? And I think this is probably, out of everything that I talk about in Revit, is likely the most complicated subject, funny enough. It seems pretty simple, but it is actually very complicated. So we're getting into a little bit of visual manipulation here, right? I'm in my floor plan view right now of my model. If I come over here to my properties dialog box, you're going to see a little option called view range, okay? And I'm going to click on edit and show you the settings associated with it, okay? I have a top, I have a cut plane, I have a bottom, and I have a view depth, all right? Now, I'm going to let you look at those for a second. And then I'm going to exit out of this, and I'm going to hover over this, and I get a little graphic that should pop up here. Oh, it's not very big. Hold on, let me find one online real quick. This is what I wanted right here. Okay. I think this is probably the best graphic I've seen for view range in Revit, right? But essentially every floor plan has a view range associated with it. And so if you're not seeing something the way you want to see it, like your floor plane is being cut but you can't see the doors, or there's a piece of furniture on the floor that you can't see, or you're not seeing the floor plan at all, you're seeing the ceiling, or there's some weird visual thing happening in your floor plans, a lot of times it can be a view range error. Okay, but the view range essentially establishes all of your vertical datums within a level, right? We have a level 1, level 2, level 3, basement level, and within each of those levels we have different ranges that you can view. We have the actual level itself, which is the bottom of the primary range, okay? We have the cut plane. So when we look at our floor plan, we are looking at the cut plane all the way down to the bottom primary range, right? And then we have the top of the primary range, okay? And we also have the view depth, right? So this top of the primary range, this is going to be for ceiling plan type stuff. So If you are drawing ceiling plans, the top of the primary range is going to establish what you see in the ceiling plan. If you are looking at maybe the primary floor plan from the cut plane to the bottom, but maybe there's something below like a footing that you want to see, then you can establish, or you can change the view depth to be able to see your view, but also items below that view, okay? This is a really confusing topic, and even now, I mean, I've been using Revit for a really long time. I get stuck in this endless loop of view range madness that drives me insane. Especially in basements or ceiling plans, it makes sense. You look at it and you think, yeah, that makes sense, right? I have a view depth, so I want to see things below the floor level I'm looking at. Great, I changed the view depth. I have my bottom and cut plane. Great, those make sense. I have my top range for ceilings. Yes, logically that makes sense. But when you're working with them in practice, sometimes it gets a little finicky, right? I guess my point here, I want you to know that this view range is controlling how you actually view things in your models, right? Per floor plan, per view, okay? And you can change what you see in that view according to your view range. And this is how it functions, okay? I have this graphic saved on my computer, and I will bring it up and look at it. I look at it all the time just to kind of remind myself how everything works, right? Let me show you how the floor plan changes when we change our view range. Oh, it's missing. Oh.
They keep walking around.
Yeah, they do. They for sure do. So if I click on view range, okay, the top of my view range is at 7 foot 6 inches above my main level. Great. My cut plane is at 4 feet. If I change that to 1 foot, apply, watch what happens to my floor plan. Do you see how my windows disappeared? Because those are at, I don't know, remember, 2 feet above the floor, right? So anything that is above the 1 foot mark, I don't see, right? The bottom is my main level. So I'm looking at my main level cut at 1 foot, and I don't see anything below that main level, right? I don't really have anything below that main level shown. But I could change the bottom to be something like the basement. So maybe I see some basement elements on my main floor plan, things like the bottom of the stairway or something that's going to be relative to my main level floor plan, right? But I have to also change this one to work with that. Maybe your sill height is lower than mine. So if I let me cancel this out. Let me go to a 3D. Did you change yours to a foot?
Yeah.
If you look at your elevation, if you select a window, what is your sill height on your window?
Okay, so I push apply and I never realized to throw it out like there.
You're already starting to experience the magic of the range. Let's see, 1 foot. So if you're, well, okay, go to 3D. Okay, so your windows are okay. Let's go to, go close out of that. And let's go back to view range. Down again. And 1 foot. Okay. Now, I think the reason you're seeing, so now you're seeing the cat file. That's why you're thinking you're seeing the windows, but you actually weren't. Yeah, you weren't.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Revit magic. I generally like Revit magic, but there are some instances where it's kind of painful. All right. I'm not going to go through our view range too much today. I want to let you know it's there, and that if you're not seeing something that you want to see, then you can try and alter it. We'll get back to it at the very end. Yep.
Is there a way to adjust your view range so that if you have two CAD files on top of each other, you don't see both of them?
2 CAD files on.
So we have the main level CAD file and then we have level 2.
Right.
I'm seeing both of them.
You're seeing
On
both?
Level 2.
From level 2, you're seeing both of them.
Both. That's straight down.
Is it a wireframe view?
Nope.
No? Let me look. So my answer would be yes. You should be able to change your, do you have an underlay turned on?
Maybe.
It might be,
I gotta look
you
down.
do, you're looking at your, see, you have your main level right there, so turn that off, go all the way up and turn that off.
Where's my level 2?
Dun.
I figured out how to see. Magic.
There you go, grab the magic, right?
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Sweet. I like it.
Okay. All right, so views, we can duplicate them, we can visually manipulate them separately to see different things, right? We can manage what we see on our views using our view range, okay? We can create call outs of views that essentially create a brand new floor plan, right? That crop a certain area where specific work is going to be done, like an enlarged floor plan or, you know, an enlarged stair plan, whatever you want to do, or a detail, okay? Today is going to be an introduction to all these things so that you know a little bit about how to manipulate them. And then over the next few weeks, we'll continue with drawing commands, right? So we'll learn about floors and roofs and stairs and, you know, kind of a bunch of stuff. And then at the end of the semester, we'll come back to this topic and further it, essentially. So today is kind of a preview so that you know how to manipulate views and distinguish different floor plans from one another visually, and how to print. But you don't know in depth very much about it, right? But you can manipulate it a little bit. One other thing, visual in nature, okay, about floor plans. If you're going to start duplicating floor plans, creating different types of floor plans and enlarged plans and call outs, right? I've showed you a little bit how to manipulate them visually, meaning I can click on this piece of furniture. I can come down here to my temporary hide isolate, and I can hide that element. Okay, that turns it off for a second. That's a temporary hide isolate. I can come down here, click on my little sunglasses and reset that, and it comes back. I can also click on that couch and I can right click and I can choose hide in view elements. That what I just did was it's kind of my number one, how do I visually manipulate things? When I want to turn things on and off, I go through and I just grab them all and I right click and hide in view, okay? That is unless I want to hide an entire category of items, okay? There is a command and it's visual graphics, okay? It's under the view tab here, visual graphics. I can also type VG at the command line. Okay, this visual graphics dialog box looks similar to the layer dialog box in AutoCAD, right? We have groups of elements here. We have little check boxes. We have little arrows that expand to show, you know, different categories of things within larger categories, right? So for example, if I go down to walls, okay? I have walls. If I uncheck this checkbox and I hit apply, visually all of my walls turn off in that view. Walls. Okay? Or if I want to turn all my doors off, right? So in a reflected ceiling plan, sometimes my doors show up, but I don't want them to. So I can go up to doors, uncheck that, and hit apply, and all my doors turn off. Okay? Visual graphics, VG or VV is the command on the keyboard. These will categorically visually turn things on and off. It doesn't delete them, it just turns them off, right? So for example, on my floor plan here, if it's a regular old floor plan and I have, you know, a bunch of furniture showing up and I never want furniture on this floor plan, I could come down here and turn off furniture, and it will forever not show furniture in this plan, okay? So another way of kind of manipulating what you see in your views. This might be leading to a question in your mind like, it's a lot of work to manipulate views, right? What if I have 30 views in a project, which you will have? How do I keep straight that on a floor plan I don't want to see certain items, and on a finished floor plan I don't want to see certain items, right? There is a way to save that data, right? So if I get my floor plan looking how I want it to look, and the cut line is right, and all the information that needs to be turned off is turned off, and you know, dimensions are turned on, everything looks really good, I can save what's called a view template, And it essentially is like, if you want to compare it to AutoCAD, like a layer states save, right? Where I can click one button and it turns on all of this layer states that I want turned on, right? And anyway, it's a way of saving your view settings, essentially, the view template, okay? So I can make it look exactly how I want it, and then I can create a view template to save those to then apply in the future, okay? Again, this is kind of a preview today of what we're going to see a little bit later in the semester. So just know that that's there. We will get to it later, how to actually set it up, okay? So duplicating, we know how to duplicate views. We know how to create callouts of views. We can turn things visually on and off in views using visual graphics or by clicking on an item and right-clicking and turning it on or off. I can change the cut line using my, my view range, right? Any questions on any of that so far? Okay. All right, so that's kind of a lot of information, right? Again, we're going to revisit it at the end of the semester when we know how to model more and we want to start annotating sheets better. But today is a good point to stop and say, you know, we've learned how to draw a lot. How do we set up our views, and then how do we print them, right? So our next topic will be how to create a sheet, how to place a view on a sheet, and then how to print that sheet, okay? And again, I'm just going to give you the basics so that you can actually print things. And then later on in the semester, we'll get a little bit more in depth into how to do it, okay? So we have all of our views generated here, right? You've duplicated them, you've renamed them, you have done whatever you need to do, okay? Now it's time to print. Your client says, hey, you know, I would love to see that floor plan that you generated. Can you send me a PDF of it? Or can you physically print it and bring it to me, right? And you need to know how to do that. So another great thing about Revit is that, you know, and I've said this before, everything that you need is self-contained in one file, and that includes drawing sheets, right? In AutoCAD, when you go to print, generally speaking, on a large professional project, you may have 50 different files that each contain a sheet, right? They're all separate. But in Revit, all of your sheets are contained in this one file, okay? You can find the sheets in your project browser under Sheets, okay? So up here we have views. We have legends, schedules, sheets, families, groups, and links. Sheets. Okay, so the process that we're going to follow to create a sheet is we're going to create a new sheet. We're going to place a title block on that sheet, and then we're going to place a view of the model on that sheet. Then we're going to print it. So we have 4 things we have to do. Create a new sheet, apply a title block to that sheet, add a view, and then print it. Okay. To create a new sheet, there's a couple of ways that I can do it. I can right-click on Sheets, and I can choose New Sheet. Okay. I can also go, let's see if I can remember where the icon is, because I never go that direction. I always just come down and right-click on it. Ooh, we might have to use the Find option. Let's do the Find. Hold on. So we're going to go to our Help menu. Oh, come on. New Sheet. Well, this is not as... Help is not as helpful as I thought it would be. There we go. No. Huh. Add a sheet. There we go. Under, let's see, View tab. Oh, so I was on the right tab. View. There we go. Okay, so it's right there. Okay. I think it's just easier to come down here and right-click on Sheets. So right-click, New Sheet, click, and this New Sheet dialog box pops up. Okay, creating a new sheet and placing a title block on it are essentially in the same command. It generally, well, I'm not going to say generally, never mind. When I create a new sheet, immediately, obviously, Revit is going to say, hey, that's great, you want to create a new sheet? What title block would you like to place on it? Okay, side note, a title block is a family, and it's an annotation family. Let me just say that about it. in Revit, we have one title block loaded. It's a 30 by 42. I have the option to choose no title block, which I don't generally want, okay? But you'll also notice I have this load button right here. If I click on load, I get brought to the Imperial Library, and at the very bottom, I have a title blocks folder here. Okay, so I can double click, and A, B, C, D, E, and E1 title blocks are represented here. Okay, I'm going to choose an arch size D, which is 22 by 34, pretty typical size. I'm going to hit open. That loads it into my project. Once it's loaded, I make sure it's selected and I hit OK. And I've just created a new sheet. Okay, so now under Sheets, if I open this little plus sign, I've got my A101 unnamed sheet. I click on my title block. There it is. If I want to change the size of my title block, I would drop down and I could change it to E1. It's bigger, right? Look how magical that is, right? So essentially you are defining your sheet size by adding your title block, right? You're not going into like your paper space setup and saying, this is a 22 by 34. You're just applying a title block, and that title block kind of bounds your page, essentially, okay? Now, what's nice about this kind of out-of-the-box, wonderful Autodesk family is that it has some parameters set up in it, okay? And we're not going to talk too much about how they're generated yet. Just know that they are there. Parameters will allow you to change information in here, and it will coordinate through each of those title blocks, right? Here's kind of the magic of Revit. You know, the owner, SLCC, enter. Project name, click. We'll call this the residence. And unnamed, maybe this is going to be the sheet name, so first level floor plan, enter. AE101 maybe, AE101, enter. Any information that is parametric, meaning it has a relationship to the model, right? I can input SLCC, and this has a parametric relationship with the model, and it coordinates through all the sheets, okay? So what that means is if I create another sheet with this title block and this information is been typed in here, okay? If it is a type parameter, this information will show up in every title block. And if I change it, it changes in every title block, okay? I do have some dumb text up here that doesn't sort of, you know, change in every title block, but the pertinent project-specific information will change, okay? So let's create one more sheet. Right-click, new sheet. I choose my size, I hit OK, and there's my second sheet. Oh my gosh, right?
When you push load before, where did you find those other sheets?
Yep. Load, all the way at the bottom, title block. So ultimately, right, if you're working professionally, you're working in an office, you will want to customize these title blocks to look exactly like your company title block, right? And it's pretty easy to do. And when we get a little bit further into the semester, we will talk about that, okay? But for now, just know that we have these title blocks. They have these parametric features in them where I can click, right? I can name this, I can make it longhand. Hopefully it'll fit. It's a long hand. Oh, it kind of, you know, we'll just do Salt Lake Community, right? And it changes there, but when I come back over here to my other sheet, click, it also updated there, right? So really nice, you know, if you change the name of something, it automatically updates in those sheets. However, what's also nice, right, these are kind of type-based parameters. We have instance-based parameters where this is sheet AE101. Not every sheet is AE101, right? They're all numbered differently. So what's nice about this parameter is it allows me to input the text, but it allows it to be unique on every sheet, right? So AE102, okay? So you're kind of getting the idea that we can change these things. Okay, so we have our title blocks inserted here. You know, it's great. They're always the right size. They always go in the right spot. They don't ever detach because they're an XREF. If I change one, it changes all of them, right? They coordinate very nicely. It's wonderful. And then in the end, when you need to create a drawing index, right, all of the information for a drawing index is extracted right from these sheets when you put it on the front page, right? So if I change it here, it changes on this sheet, any other sheet it needs to change on, and then the drawing index updates as well, okay? Anybody who's ever coordinated a set of drawings knows what a pain in the neck it is to coordinate all this stuff. So this is really kind of the magic of Revit right here. So I have my AE 101 first level floor plan. Let's call this one AE 102. We'll call this one, you know, second level floor plan. Enter. Great. Okay. So we have these sheets created, and they will all start to generate under sheets. I can close it up, right? I can open it up. Looks good. We've created sheets. Now, how do we put our floor plan on there, right? How do we put our elevations on there? Okay, let's talk about that next. I'm going to go over here to AE 101. Okay, this is the simplest thing ever, right? If I want to put the main level floor plan over from here onto the AE 101, I'm going to click on it, hold my mouse button, drag it over onto the sheet, let go, click, and it's placed. That's it. Finally, right? Some wows. That's it. Yep, you drag it from the project browser. Yep, that's it. So I can click on it, I can drag it, move it around. Okay. This does function somewhat like Paperspace, where there is a viewport here, right? I am kind of able to engage the view from my sheet, right? So I can double click on my view very fast, click, click, and you see my title block grays out, and I'm able to engage the model here. So it is kind of a model space, paper space relationship without all of the craziness that goes on in model space, essentially, right, in paper space. So I can still come in here and click on items, and I can move them. I can, you know, delete dimensions, add dimensions. I can still do things in here. Click, click, very quick, and I get out. Click, click, I'm in. Click, click, I'm out. So it's just a double click in and out, okay? I can also click on it, right click, and I can choose activate view if you want to go the long route. Right click, deactivate. You guys didn't see the most magical part of this view coming onto the sheet. It has a title associated with it already, right?
Mine doesn't.
Oh, I bet it does.
Oh, it's at the bottom. Let her see it.
Yep, is it hanging out way far below? Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Keep going, keep going. There it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that is because when a view is brought onto your sheet, it brings the entire crop region with it. So if your crop region is very far out, the view title will be very far away, right? So to fix that problem, if your title's all the way down here, okay, go back to your view, main level, click, click. Turn on your crop region and bring your crop region in very tight to your project. I'm going to turn my crop region off. Go back to my sheet. There it is, right? If I want to delete a view from a sheet, I can click on it and hit delete. Gone. Okay. I can go back and grab it, bring it back on. Click. There it is. Okay, if I want to bring a second view onto a sheet, I click and hold, bring it over, click, there's a second view. I'm going to move it over. Look what happens when I drag this one very close. You see how, well, oh, come on. Ooh, it's where it's lining it up. Yeah. This one might not because it's enlarged there, but if let's bring the, oh, I don't think I have my second level drawn yet.
So that sheet number name is not coming up, not very cropped it.
Let's look. The sheet number?
What about it with the title?
Oh, well, okay, so click on it. And hit delete.
This?
Okay, now bring it back over once you cropped it. So it's going to stay the same way unless you bring it back on. But you can move the title. I'll show you. Okay, so what's nice again about this is that everything coordinates with itself, right? So you'll notice that this main level is called main level, right? If I click on this and I click again, I'm going to click on the view, and I click on this, I could name it main level again, enter. And it changes it main level again over there, right? So anything that I change, it has a relationship back and forth between the view, the title, right? Where it's located in the set, the title block, right? So I can change these things in any place, enter, yes, right? And it recoordinates, which is where we start saving time on the back end of the set, right? So I think I've said this before, Revit is very front loaded. So there's a ton of information that goes in the beginning, right? And then in the back end, on the back side of the set, it just moves very quickly. AutoCAD's opposite. You have a ton of input, right? Or sorry, not very much input up front. And then in the back end of the set, when you have to coordinate tags and text and title blocks and XREFs, that's where all your time is spent, right? So, you know, not only do you have to learn Revit, but you have to kind of learn the timeline associated with it because it's opposite of AutoCAD, right? Which is kind of, you know, the AIA has gotten into a little debate on should our fee structure change, right? If we're very front loaded, if we're doing most of the work in Revit up front, should we be paid more up front and less in the back, right? Something to think about. All right, so we can add views, okay? We can activate views and change things here. I can click and get out. I can click on the title, right? And I can click and hold and I can drag it down, okay? Move it. I can also resize it, but I can only resize it by clicking on the actual viewport. So this is called a viewport, right? I can click on it. And do you notice when I click on it, I get these little blue grips popping up here, right? I can click and drag and make those longer or shorter. I'm gonna hit escape, okay? If I wanna move it, I don't click on the viewport, I just click on the object and drag it, okay? Now, one thing that's interesting, so this is main level, okay? I placed it on sheet AE 101, all right? I'm gonna go to AE 102. And I think to myself, gosh, I'd sure like these same floor plan on a different sheet. Once I have taken a view and placed it on a sheet, it's not accessible to be placed on another sheet. And that's why we have to create duplicate views of things to add them to sheets, right? But also to be able to do sheet specific work on them, right? So it kind of says, hey, you've already placed that sheet, right? It's on AE 101. If you want to, you know, place the exact same thing, you're going to have to make a copy, okay? But I can grab these and let's take an elevation. I can grab my east elevation, drag it, drop it, click. There we go, right? I'm going to close out of all my other views. Let me open up my east elevation. WT, window tile. What happens if I change my scale? Oh my gosh, here's where we should get oohs and ahs, right? Let's change this to a 16th. Holy cow, it knows, right? I know, this is magic, people. This is magic. Right? So it changes scale. Not only does it, you know, it physically changes the scale on the sheet, so it's smaller, right? Magic. But it also coordinates the title. So, you know, there isn't a client that says, hey, that says it's a 16th, and they go to measure it and it's a quarter, right? It's wrong. So this is really great. I can change the scale. Let me change it to a quarter. Oh, look at that. Now, although, you know, I take it to a 1/4 inch and it's kind of big for the view, right? So I will have to kind of, you know, maybe reposition it on the sheet. Maybe I'll have to double click. And to get it to fit on the sheet very nicely, I might have to alter the annotation from the sheet. You see that? Double click out. I'll probably have to move the title, so I click and hold, drag it over. Click on the viewport, and I'm able to drag that little tail over. Okay? Yep.
So when you're going to print and on like AutoCAD, you're supposed to press on that little, what do you call it? The little icon that disables the viewport. That way it doesn't come out when you print out.
Right.
You have to do the same thing on Revit.
So if I click on this, you see I'm selecting the viewport and it shows. But when I hit escape, that disappears. So inherently, the viewport does not print in Revit.
Okay.
Now, with that said, crop regions will. Okay, so if I have my elevation open and editable here, and I turn on my crop region, right, and I double click out, that crop region will print. And it's not a viewport, so don't confuse the two. Viewports won't print inherently in Revit, but crop regions will.
So the
So,
only thing you need to do is just click it, check it out, and that's it, right?
yep,
Okay.
yep. Junior's damaged. He's like, wait a minute, where's the viewport? How do I make it not print? Yep, it's good. It's good to think about though. Trust me, Revit has its own issues. Don't get me wrong. Every program does, right? But there are a lot of really great things about Revit as well. Okay, so we can create sheets. We can pull views onto sheets. We know that we can only pull a view onto one sheet at a time. So if I wanted to create, you know, another view on a sheet that had this same information, I would have to duplicate it over in my project browser, right? And give it a new name and then place it on a sheet, all right? There's going to be some more advanced things we'll do with sheets. We'll add general notes and different things like that, right? But for now, right, if I asked you, hey, will you please print your main level floor plan, right? You would come down here, you would create a brand new sheet. You know, we're just going to use this Autodesk for today, for now. We're just going to use this Autodesk title block. I'll show you how to alter it a little bit in the future. But for now, it's okay, right? You can add the project name, you can give the sheet title, you can put your name on it, the author, right? Okay, issue date, project number, all these good things. I don't understand, well, I understand why, but why would you want your client to know when you print, right? Be able to lie to them and say, oh, I was printed and ready yesterday, right? Not this morning at 4:09 a.m. So I always take that little timestamp off, which we'll talk about. Anyway, right, so if you wanted to print your main level, you would grab your main level, drag it over here, and you would print it, okay? I mean, it seems very easy. There is some manipulation. You have to move it on the sheet. You have to move the title if you need to, whatever. But by and far, it's a very simple task.
Yeah, my name was this drawn by. I can't get my name to fit in that box. How do I make that box bigger?
We'll have to alter the we'll have to alter the title block. So just abbreviate for now. Okay. So how do we print this? Right. First of all, I think this is a little too small, so I want to make it so it fits better on my page. So I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to change the scale from 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Double click, out, click, drag it over here, kind of get it centered. I can nudge with this. So nudge means I click on the viewport and I can use my arrows, click, 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 to move it right into place. Right? I can grab my view title, drag it up where it needs to go. This is a little big on the sheet, but that's all right. Click on the viewport, drag this little guy out. There we go. Looks good, right? Time to print. Printing in Revit is really easy as well. Okay, I can Control P. I can come up here to plot. I don't need a pen file, which is nice, right? All of the line weights are inherent in Revit, so there's no pen file associated with it. Essentially, all I'm going to do is choose my plotter. Okay, now the one thing about Revit, as opposed to AutoCAD that's a little tricky, is that Revit does not have a built-in, it has the Microsoft Print to PDF, which I guess we'll create a PDF, right? I'm not sure the quality of a Microsoft PDF, but it doesn't have like the DWG to PDF option that AutoCAD does. So unless you have purchased the Adobe software, you're going to be stuck with Print to PDF, Microsoft Print to PDF, okay? But let me just, since we're here, I'm going to use Adobe PDF. I want to create a PDF, digital file, right? I can choose to combine all of my sheets into one file at one time instead of printing them separately or having to do a sheet set in AutoCAD. I can choose where to save it, so I choose Browse, Desktop, Revit Project, okay. Now what do I want to print? Do I want to print just the current window? Or do I want to print maybe the visible portion, like if you're zoomed in somewhere? Or do I want to print several things at one time? I'm going to click select views or sheets. Select. I can choose any of the views like the south elevation or the main level floor plan. Or I can uncheck views and I can just pick the sheets I want to print. Right? So it's a checkbox. Hit OK. Final thing, setup. What size of page? Well, we did a 22 by 34. I'm just going to choose an arch size D. We want it centered. Now here's where kind of the only trick in printing is in Revit. Do we want to fit it to page or zoom to 100% of its size? Zoom to 100% of its size. So that means that it will be 100% the right scaled size, right? We don't want it to be 50% or 75% so that it's not the correct scale. We want it to be zoomed to 100% of its size. Okay, landscape looks good. Okay, I'm gonna hit OK. Now I can, you know what, I was just thinking of something. Setup. Hide crop boundaries. Sorry, I just thought of that. We can check this checkbox right here so that even if your crop region is turned on, it will hide it when it prints. So there you go. You don't have to worry necessarily about your crop regions. That escaped me. Okay, so hide crop boundary, hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK. I don't have my preview. Oh, why don't I have my preview available? It's weird. And it's going to ask me to save my PDF file. So where would you like to save that digital file, right? That was my desktop, Revit project, hit save, and it starts printing all of the different pages. And it's going to compile all those PDF pages into one document, right, which is really nice. I could also have physically printed, right? Instead of choosing Adobe PDF, I could have chosen our printer over here, or I could have chosen the plotter over there and just set everything up the same way, right? The PDF is just an easy way to create the file. And it looks like it's kind of stuck, actually. Let me try that one more time.
I tried it too and it's stuck for me too.
Let's try it a second time. I bet on this.
Doing all the sheets?
Yeah, there's only two.
Oh.
I'm gonna hit save. Here's, okay, so I don't know if it's just glitchy. Let me just tell you my experience with Revit printing. It's really easy, but sometimes it gets stuck on the first print, so I have to escape out and do it again. The second time, flawless, for whatever reason. So just do it again, and it creates them, right? Oh, can anybody tell me what's wrong with this page? It's not centered. I think maybe when under my setup, this toggled. That is another finicky thing about the print dialog box in Revit. Like you will come in and set something and hit OK. And you know, this one toggles back and forth a lot. And sometimes these setups do too. So you just want to check everything. Obviously it just happened to me. So I'm going to hit OK. Save. Yes. And there we go. Magically prints beautifully centered on the page, right? I have a PDF file with both of my drawings in it. I could send that to the printer. I could email it to whoever wants it, right? Pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Okay. Any questions about any of that so far? Okay. So let me just hold on one second. Oh, there's gonna be another lecture. Two things. Three things. Hold on a second. Let me pull up my canvas here. Let's see, we are 2350. Okay. All right, so I'm going to, no homework. this time. I'm going to let this sit for a day, and we will wrap a few other things up on Wednesday with regard to printing. Okay. So no homework for tonight. I do want to show you a couple of things that are not class related. We are having our first club social finally after spending about 8 months getting it set up. And it's going to be on Thursday. Bon is our secretary, so she's going to be managing our schedule and everything. It's finally happening. But we're just going to have a social. It's going to be upstairs. It's on Thursday. It's at 1 p.m. up in the conference room upstairs. There will be pizza and we'll have drinks, and it'll just be very casual. We're just going to essentially be talking about the club, and if you want to join, it's $10 to join, and we'll sign you up, and you can be involved. Yep.
What if you have a class at 1?
At 1 o'clock, you could probably come a little bit earlier.
Okay.
If you want to just come a little earlier, then we might be setting up, but if you want to join, you can come and get joined. Yep.
Okay.
That's fine.
Sounds good.
You get free pizza every Thursday then?
Not every Thursday, but this Thursday, yes, you will. But we'll talk about some of the events. Again, it's going to be very casual, right? It's not going to be a huge event. But come and get signed up, and, we'll talk about a few things.
Sorry, is it always going to be on Thursday at 1?
No.
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 Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah. I think we're trying to establish maybe a set time during the week, but it'll vary, right? And the events will probably vary in time and date and different things, yeah.
And also keep checking the dates on the calendar, so I just entered.
Good. Bon is going to keep track of our calendar, and she's going to put all of our architecture events in there. And when we have meetings, she'll put the meeting on there. And if you have joined this, right, then you should get notifications of what is happening. Anyway, should be fun, right? We'll start our seminar series and all that good stuff. So come to this, it'll be fun. So that's one thing. Second thing, this will be something that Bon's going to put on the calendar. Has anybody been to the Spiral Jetty? Did I already ask this in this class?
Yes.
And nobody, okay, sorry, I forget. But this woman is going to be lecturing on the Spiral Jetty. This is what it looks like. It's just a land art installation. And here, my idea, which I'm going to talk with everybody about, I think that this lecture might be fun to go to, and then we could all as a class, if you wanted, right, as a club, go out and visit the Spiral Jetty one weekend or something. Which,
Oh, do you know if it's visible right now?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it is or not. Have you been?
I've never been.
Okay.
I've heard that it's covered up when I was about to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to see if I can find out if it is or not. Because when it's exposed, it's great. But when it's kind of covered, it's like a wonderland out there. Like, that's the best way to describe it, no joke. The pink water, the white salty foam, and it's like a wonderland. You're out there like, this is a video game, Anyway, so I think going to this lecture and maybe doing something like that would be kind of fun. So Bon will put that on our schedule. So club meeting this week on Thursday at 1. If you want to come a little early to get signed up because you have class, that's fine too. Or just connect with me and we can get that going. Or Nora's our treasurer, so she'd even be better. No assignment for today. We'll finish up printing on Wednesday. And unless there are any questions, that's all for today. A quiz on Wednesday? No, we haven't had a quiz yet. We haven't had a quiz in this class yet.
Did I miss any quizzes?
No quiz yet. Okay, I'll come and help you. All right, let me get my YouTube video processing, and then I will come and answer your questions.